Hey, hey, you made ATN outside the box, as we always say. Like, subscribe, share. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Had some technical difficulties just a few minutes ago. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened because it's my first rodeo with the technical difficulties. So I'm going to ride it out. Coming back at you and wanted to go ahead and continue on this post and basically just say this. Past couple of days, we were talking over this week. Just the short and sweet of it is people were saying, hey, what are we doing about it? What's going on in the community? What are we doing about everything that's happening around us? And people kind of challenging each other to, what do you do? Everybody's talking about this and this and that, but what are we actually doing? Well, we started off earlier this week kind of talking about some things, part one and part two this week, just kind of talking about, first and foremost, we said that it would be good for us to start with giving wise counsel, because young people, these people that are going through things nowadays, we said, biblically speaking, there is safety in a multitude of wise counsel. And so that's what we try to get people to understand. Like, there is a multitude of, there's safety in a multitude of wise counsel. What that would mean is that people need to hear sound judgment, clarity, and direction from generations of people who know what life looks like, who has had some success making quality decisions in their lives. And I think that's where we're missing it. A lot of these people are getting counsel from somewhere, but it's just not the right content. What can we do? As we talked about here on Outside the Box, we've done a multitude of things over the past several years to help people work through things, young people, youth ministries, schools, rallies, just doing things over the years to kind of help them build sound judgment and clarity about their lives and who they belong to. God created us all, and that's what we believe here. The second thing we talked about, in short, is we talked about that God created you for a purpose. And that's something that I think we failed to get them to understand. We said in that segment, we just repeated it over and over and over again. God created you for purpose. He created you for purpose. Why is that important? Because the more people hear something, they begin to believe what they hear about who they are and what they stand for. And I think a lot of these young people, they're getting content over and over and over again. But where's the content coming from? Is it coming from their favorite rap song? Is their validation coming from their favorite TV programming? Is it coming from their favorite rapper? Is it coming from their favorite TV stars, their favorite athlete? And so we have to talk to them and say to them what God would tell them, or what God would say. And I think that's what we're kind of young people are being, or people are just misinterpreting what's being said and not catching the full picture of what's supposed to be happening. Well, here we are at part three, how we impact and what we're about. I'm going to take a quote from the late great. If you don't know who he is, look him up online. His name is Myles Munroe, a Bohemian minister from years back. He had an untimely death. Great man, a guy, traveled all over the world, #1 best-selling books all over the world. Powerful man, and really had a lot to say to people and speaking into people's lives and their purpose. So we're going to take a page out of his book in part three here and just say that when purpose is not known, he said this, when purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And so I think what's pretty evident now is that people don't know their purpose. That's what we see going on around us. They don't know their purpose. I was really, really hurt, crushed, saddened by what I saw over the past week. We had some babies killed, man. Over the past week, 9 children, precious babies killed, innocent, killed in the inner city. Some of it gang violence, gang guns, back and forth, people shooting back and forth, killing these 9 babies. And they're in the inner city, man. And it's just funny to me that when you look around, you don't see people being intense about this. I don't hear a bunch of uproar. I don't hear BLM jumping out of their skin on this. I don't hear people in the community. I don't see people complaining. They're not upset about this. I'm upset. I'm irritated because I'm tired of watching this same old episode or rerun of us seeing young folks die in our communities over and over and over again. And all we can discuss is the less than 1% death that happens at the hands of somebody else from another race. That should be alarming to somebody. Somebody should be bothered by this. And I hate to get intensified. My voice is all going up. I'm an octave up. But I'm just saying, can we please gain some understanding here? and look for some clarity or this. If I could, it's a lack of a better term. This is silly for me to say a silver lining, but can you find in this? Can you make sense of this? I got 2 children of my own, and I feel like that this is sad, man. You know, to have 2 child's lives be. If it was mine, okay, let me just go about it this way. If my child life have to be taken, and they're very innocent people, didn't do nothing, have lived a good life, and these young people, they don't even have a chance yet. And to know that people were devising a plan to get somebody and killed my children in the process. I don't know about you, man, but that pisses me off. I'm irritated. I'm even more irritated that nobody's mad about it. Not mad enough to say something, to do something about it. So 9 children in the inner city, young babies killed in the crossfire of these ignorant knuckleheads shooting at each other. 9 different occasions. And you don't hear an uproar. You don't hear an uprising. You don't hear people going to the streets. But I having children myself, having nieces and nephews myself, I'm bothered by this, man. Because we're not doing anything. We're not saying anything. Nobody's saying nothing. And my going back to my key point, my impact point today is we need to teach them about purpose. We need to teach people about purpose. Teach them about the purpose that they were created, because as we said in part 2, your purpose, we need to understand God created you for a purpose. He created you for a plan. But these young folks don't know it. They're getting their plan from the local hoodlum in the street, or they're getting their plan from the local rap artist. And so it's sad to watch, because I believe, and you should believe, we should all be kind of on the same page with this. If we're all troubled by what's going on, if everybody's upset, then I think that we should be talking to them about their purpose, giving them wise counsel, because as we said, there's safety in a multitude of wise counsel, biblical, Proverbs 24:6. Okay. So when you look at these things and you see what's going on, they're not getting wise counsel. They're not being told that they were created for a purpose, which we talked about in segment 2. But we're saying this. This is what we're saying at Outside the Box. And this is what we hope to continue to extend, because we've been saying the same thing for years. So when you have these babies, and even more alarming, again, I've said it before, God rest his soul, George Floyd, he didn't deserve to die, but there was a reason why the cops were present. Okay, we don't want to talk about that. There's a reason why they were present. And you can look at any death that's happened at the hands of cops on multiple occasions. You can name any of them. There's a reason why the law enforcement officer was on scene. And if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. Because it doesn't take rocket science to know that why was law enforcement there in the first place? So George Floyd died at the hands of law enforcement. Wasn't fair, wasn't right, but the law enforcement officer was there. That's the first thing. Second thing, we painted him to be a martyr, like he was Jesus. I heard him talking about it at his funeral. He's a martyr, he's this, he's that. And what's saddening to me is that they raised millions for this man. They raised millions for him. I'm not judge and jury. I can't say that it was a bad idea, but they raised millions. Do you know that one of these babies died in the mother's arms? The babies died. One of the girls died in the mother's arms. She told her mom, I'm hit. And she died in her mother's arms, passed out. They couldn't even raise $2,000 yet. Somebody help me with that one. $2,000. I believe the baby might have been 9 years old. So I'm saying what I think we need to be doing in terms of impacting. Everybody wants to know how we impact. Well, first and foremost, let's get out here and talk to, or if you want to go to your local mayor, let's talk to them about, not your local mayor. Let's go to the areas where it's happening most. Or let's deal with it from that angle. Or what have you been doing? Like I said, everybody's got their lane. I'm not going to tell you the steps you need to take to go do it, but we need to start affecting change by telling people what's purposeful, what's right. In these neighborhoods, crime is maybe down a couple of percent, but the murder rate in these big cities with, Democratic mayors and stuff like that who are talking about making change, the murder rate is up 16 to 20% murder rate in these places. So What we need to be doing is going and talking to the powers that be about fixing the problem in the inner city with these guys and not defunding the police. What's that going to do? Because each time these people were killed or each time a murder happened over this past week of one of these babies, guess who was called? Law enforcement and first responders and the ambulance and whoever else you want to talk about in terms of first responder. But we're not discussing this stuff. But everybody's really adamant, really passionate about law enforcement in the inner city. And everybody's really passionate about white law enforcement officers getting an understanding of who they are. We're going to talk going forward because we're going to ask some questions about what kind of law enforcement officer are you looking for in your inner city. We're going to talk about that going forward. But I will tell you something. There's I'm not sure why my thing is cutting off, so forgive me here if I keep blanking out. But I'm going to tell you this. What's interesting is that there is a way to people who need it, because what I think is happening now is that we're focused on the wrong direction. We're being diverted for some odd reason, and the way we go about remedying this and righting the ship is we got to begin to tell people what's important, what's needed, what is going on with my service. Anyway, listen, here's how we do this. I'm gonna end with this. Let me ask you something. First and foremost, I want to get a question out to you, and you can respond back and we'll kind of dialogue about this. What do you think is a way for us to impact and also purpose? That's the first thing. Why don't the neighborhoods know their purpose? And I think that we can kind of remedy some things if we start with this. Why don't they know their purpose? Because we said before, Miles Monroe stated in his statement, if you don't know the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable. How are we abusing it? Well, look around. It's being abused. People are not operating in the area that God created them for. People are not making decisions in the area that God created them to make decisions in. And lastly, I would say that discernment is a key element here that's lacking. There is no discernment. People can't discern. Many times, discernment comes into play even when you're being stopped by a law enforcement officer. How does that discernment come into play? Because your disposition carries a lot of weight. What is your disposition? How are you operating? How are you responding to what's being said to you? Usually when you come in contact with somebody on the street, this is what's interesting. You come in contact with somebody on the street, and they got a weapon, or they're giving you orders and telling you to do something. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be done. Because you know the person can cap you whenever they want to. But yet, this would be a person that you don't know. This would be some kind of thug or gang member or a street cat. But what happens, interestingly enough, is you take that same example and you allow a law enforcement officer in a uniform who has a clean record, who's not a criminal, but has actually had some interaction with you, and he's not the most pleasant one that you're running into. How do you respond to it? Do you snap back? Or do you do the same thing you would do for this person who's on the streets who had a gun? That's something to think about. It's called discernment. And we're going to talk about discernment going forward too, because we understand that the two things we talked about in the first two segments were finding safety in a multitude of wise counsel. Well, what does that look like? We talked about that. We talked about in the second segment where we said that you were created for a purpose. And this is what we have to tell these people of this generation. Tell the young people. Because if I look at my lifetime over 40-some years, this is the worst interaction of racial behavior that I've ever seen in my entire life. So when people say, oh, this has been going on for years, no, it hasn't. And anybody that's wise enough, anybody from the inner city, if you from the neighborhood, you pretty much know where I'm coming from when I say there's a few things that used to be said to you. Don't get caught slipping. You better get in. When you was younger, get in before the street lights come on. And last and certainly not least is watch your back. Watch your back. Now, I wonder when they told you that, either in your household or your cousins or your aunts or uncles or whoever, when they said, watch your back, don't get caught slipping and get in before the street lights come on, I wonder who they were talking about. Somebody help me with that one. Were they talking about the cops? Or they were talking about the hood? Okay? Something for you to just think about. Again, we outside the box. We see it different. We're going to come at it different. We're going to look at things a little differently. But I need you to question yourself, question your motivations, question your previous pain, because some folks got pain that they still dealing with, and that's how they respond under the unction of their pain, or the unction of their decision making, or the unction of their discernment. And your discernment may fool you sometimes, especially if it's not biblically based. So don't try to make the Bible fit into your box, but you need to fit into the Bible's box. If the Bible's what you're going to follow, okay? If you're following after God's own heart, then try to find a way to gain understanding about what he created you for, the counsel that we should be taking, and who we're supposed to be operating with, and how we're supposed to be making quality decisions. And we need to transfer that information to our kids and to the next generation. Because if we don't do it, we will continue to see this cycle, because they're getting advised, they're catching an understanding about discernment, and they're being told how to respond by other people. What are these other people telling them? Lastly, I'll say this. If a young man comes to you and he's like, hey, I got stopped by the cops, what are you saying to him? Oh, well, you already at a disadvantage because you're black. See, you just put something in his head. Wrong. You need to be speaking uplifting. You're created for a purpose. And let me help you find safety and wise counsel. Let me talk to you. What happened during this incident? Let's discuss the incident. Let's talk about what you did. Let's talk about what you said. Let's talk about what he said. Let's discuss it. Now, let's say it was all on the cops' shoulders and it was all the cops' fault. We still got to take into consideration to talk to that young man, to talk to these kids, and tell them how they are to operate going forward. Now, you don't give them your peace. You give them God's peace, if you are indeed following the principles of God. Because that's what he would cause you to do. He would want you to give them wise counsel. He would want you to tell them that they were created for a purpose. And he would want you to tell them to practice discernment, and also give them, as I said in the beginning, this Miles Monroe piece, and say this. If you don't know the purpose of yourself, then abuse is inevitable. What are we seeing around us right now? Abuse. Look at the 9 babies that were killed over the last week. Abuse. Look at the people who are mismanaging themselves. We talked about being sober in the second segment. Being sober. Because the Bible says, come, let us reason together. If you're not sober, abuse is inevitable. So let's take these principles. Let's use them to try to push forward. Because I'm going to tell you right now, us going off in the streets and protesting and rioting, that's not going to fix the problem. Colin Kaepernick's not going to fix the problem by kneeling. Them playing the national anthem, the black national anthem, which technically was not the black national anthem. It was a song that they created for Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Look it up for yourself. It was not the black national anthem. But see how we get caught up in things? I don't think we should be caught up in things. Let's focus on where we're going and how do we get better from the area we were before the George Floyd incident. Because before that, I think we were in a pretty solid place as a country, moving into a better area between the relationships between cops and the inner city. But you take one false thing and you put it in somebody's head, and if they're not able to discern, they're going to go right back to what they were doing before. And here we are right back to square one. And then we're looking for people to fix us and arrange for us to feel better. So one day they change this and we okay. Next week they tear down the statue and we're okay. The next day they don't. They put the statue back up. They erect it again. And are you mad again? So you're unstable, as I said before. Like James, it says, James, you're unstable in all your ways, tossed to and fro. And that's not what we need. We need sound judgment, clarity, discernment, and finding safety in a multitude of wise counsel. Outside the box, Ation. As always, like, subscribe, and share. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Went a little longer than I wanted to do, but I'm sorry. The 9 babies losing their lives and one dying in their mother's arms really got under my skin. I did not mean to go but 5 minutes, but I lost it today. I'm passionate about this. I want to see people's lives impacted. We got a world to save, not a country. We have a world to save. And if you don't believe that God created you for purpose, created you to make disciples of nations, and created you to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, if you don't believe that, then maybe you're in the wrong place. Okay? But we got a world to save. We got a world to impact. Let's do it together. But we got to have sound judgment and discernment. We got to do it God's way. Outside the box, Ation signing off.